cup overflowed, that was cant. You became what you fought.
As we all will become in time.
I don't believe that.
You don't want to, but there's a fine line out there, and hell is waiting on the other side.
The Dark Quickening of Highlander is a concept introduced in the TV show, and while there are some aspects of it that I love, there is one single line of dialogue that to me makes it more damaging to the mythology of the franchise than the aliens of Highlander 2 and the demon Ahriman combined. My name is David McMurdo and welcome to Highlander Lore. We learn the deepest Highlander lore from a Highlander.
Look, I'm already breaking the rules here.
Then break them some more. We're not in Kansas anymore, Toto.
No, I guess we aren't.
Now, although the Dark Quickening arc takes place across 2 episodes in Season 4 of the Highlander TV show, the seeds for it were planted in the very first season. In order to explain to newcomers what a Dark Quickening, and by extension a Light Quickening is, I first need to introduce them to Duncan MacLeod's friend Darius. Darius is a priest that Duncan met during the Napoleonic Wars.
You shouldn't be taking part in this tragedy.
I was raised a warrior. I choose battles I believe to be just.
Oh, I'm sure. You're quite loyal to your convictions and compatriots. But I wonder what these men think about that. About convictions and compatriotism now.
Although Duncan always respected and admired Darius's devotion to pacifism, it was ultimately something that he himself could not embrace.
Why have you done this?
What else was I supposed to do, Darius? Tell me that. I can't be like you. Maybe I'm not old enough or wise enough.
Duncan and Darius remained friends, and in the early 90s, the Highlander would introduce the priest to his partner Tessa and pre-immortal student Richie. At one point, Duncan relates a legend concerning Darius to Richie.
The legend has it that Darius killed the holy man at the gates of Paris. The oldest living immortal at the time. And suddenly he changed. He turned his back on war.
This supposed incident is what's known as a Light Quickening, and Richie is quick to understand its implications.
Well, does that mean that, like, if a really good immortal, like, chopped the head off a really bad ancient immortal, that he could, you know?
3 years later, Duncan is taking Richie to meet an old friend of his by the name of James Coltec. Duncan met Coltec at a particularly troublesome point in the Highlander's life. The community of Sioux Native Americans that had embraced him had been slaughtered, including his Sioux wife, and Duncan was determined to seek revenge against the US soldiers responsible, just as he had against the English after the Battle of Culloden Moor over a century earlier. It was when he was captured and imprisoned that he met Coltec, who himself was a prisoner, having been accused of killing a soldier.
They were riding down a young Indian for sport. I did this, and the horses reared, soldier fell off and died.
I can't blame you for that.
No. Still, they will hang me. And who was to say I didn't make the horses rear?
But Coltec was not just a shaman and mystic, but also a Hyoka, a special class whose function is to take the hatred of others upon himself.
Your hate is not destroying him, but it is destroying you.
And who are you to know?
I am Hyoka. It is my job to take the hatred from the world.
Perceiving the rage that was driving Duncan, Coltec offered to do this for him. Duncan agrees, and Coltec explains the Highlander's dilemma using the analogy of a cup.
You are like this cup. One more drop, and the hate will own you. I can empty this cup. Before it happens, take the hate into myself.
When Duncan questions the effect that absorbing so much hatred might have on Coltec himself, the mystic assures him that he is in no danger.
And what will happen to you?
I am Hyoka. My cup has no bottom.
In this, he would ultimately be proven wrong, but the ritual he performs upon Duncan at that time proves to be successful, and the Highlander is freed from his hatred. But in 1996, when Duncan and Richie meet Coltec, the shaman attacks them, and they narrowly avoid being beheaded. Duncan meets with Joe Dawson and raises the possibility that Coltec might have undergone a Dark Quickening.
What do you know about Dark Quickenings?
Come on, you're reaching, MacLeod.
A Dark Quickening is the opposite of what Duncan had earlier described a Light Quickening as being.
When we take an immortal's head, we take his energy, his power, his strength.
Right.
In a dark quickening, if you take in too much evil, you overload.
You become evil yourself?
There's no proof.
Duncan recalls meeting Coltec in the 1950s after the Native American had just beheaded an evil immortal by the name of Bryce Corland, and he could tell that something was off with his friend at that time.
You okay?
Tip top. I just need to be alone for a while. Low nature, tom-toms. It's an Indian thing.
Back in the 90s, Duncan is able to confirm through Joe and the Watcher Network that Coltec had recently beheaded another evil immortal by the name of Horvin Kant, and that after having done so, he began behaving like him, right down to mimicking his style of clothing. This convinces Duncan that Coltec has undergone a dark quickening, and having tracked his friend down, he attempts unsuccessfully to serve as a Hyoka for him.
You, a Hyoka? And what makes you think that you've got the stuff?
Because I had a good teacher.
Superstitious crap. Forget it, McLeod. This is the real me.
Ultimately, Duncan sees no other choice but to behead his old friend. But of course, this causes Duncan himself to undergo a dark quickening. Having caused trouble in Joe's bar, Duncan nearly kills Richie. Although Joe restrains Duncan, he ultimately releases him, trusting in Duncan's innate goodness.
Wrong choice.
Maybe so. Maybe so.
What I love in this first part of the Dark Quickening arc is the character of Jim Coltec himself, and also the whole concept of a Hyoka and how such a function fits within the world of the Immortals.
My name is Coltec.
It's not a Sioux name.
My tribe was long before that, but I have been with the Sioux. You also have a name.
MacLeod. Of the clan MacLeod.
Ah, European tribe.
I also like those character moments between Duncan MacLeod and Joe Dawson.
I know your strength. I know your will. I know your goodness. And whatever monsters are in you now, I know you're still in there too.
But what I hate is the black and white view of good and evil that this arc presents. Season 4 is rated as being among the best, if not the best, of the 6 seasons of the Highlander TV show, and one of the reasons for that is that the stories and characters were becoming increasingly complicated. A concept that deals in good and evil as absolutes just doesn't fit well at a time when a show is increasingly presenting its characters more realistically as being shades of grey. However, that's a minor issue compared to the way that, in my opinion, the concept of the Dark Quickening will go on to threaten to ruin the whole of Highlander. But before I get to that, please like the video and leave a comment letting me know what your thoughts are on the Dark Quickening. If you feel like supporting Highlander Lore either as an immortal on Patreon or as a watcher here on YouTube, you'll receive a bonus monthly video and podcast episode for doing so. Thank you for watching. Now, the second episode of the Dark Quickening arc mainly concerns Duncan wreaking havoc in various ways as Mythos attempts to track him down.
Get in! I'll kill you, you bastard! What do you want, a written invitation?
The most significant event occurs when Duncan goes to visit an old friend of his, Sean Burns. It would seem that Duncan is driven to visit Sean by some dim memory of the bond that the two once shared.
Well, I know the body heals, but to heal the mind, to heal the damage inside, do you think that's possible?
Sigmund Freud does. Brilliant mind, disgusting cigars.
You're doing good work here, Sean.
Unfortunately, whatever affection remains is not enough to prevent Duncan from doing the unthinkable. I'll Ultimately, Mythos is able to guide Duncan to a secret healing spring, and bathing himself in its waters, Duncan essentially goes on a vision quest in which he must fight an evil version of himself, one that is clearly a personification of the darkness within him. At one point during this battle, Duncan is able to communicate with Sean Burns, who now naturally exists inside of him, and it's a single line of dialogue here that makes me hate the whole concept of the Dark Quickening.
I'm sorry. For what? It wasn't you who killed me.
So Sean Burns says that it wasn't Duncan who beheaded him. Now, it was pretty clear from the first episode of this arc that what you're essentially dealing with when it comes to light and dark quickenings is possession by those that you've beheaded, and right here, they cement that fact. But here's why that ruins everything, in my opinion. The first problem is that we have no way of knowing which characters might have undergone a light or a dark quickening, and therefore, we have no way of knowing their true nature, and nor do our immortal heroes. Connor has absolutely no way of knowing that the Kurgan isn't fundamentally a really nice guy that's currently possessed, and the same goes for Duncan when it comes to characters like Callus.
But remember, if you do kill me, you'll finish too.
Maybe it's worth it if it rids the world of you.
A dark quickening could have been compared to someone being under the influence of drink or drugs. They may not be themselves, so to speak, but they're sure responsible for what they do, certainly as far as the law is concerned.
Don't lecture me. It's my life.
That's right it is, but when you slam your car into a bus, you don't die, other people do. That's mine!
The way it's actually presented just means that immortal characters aren't accountable if they should undergo a dark quickening.
It's over.
Then I think this is yours.
Yeah.
But here's the final nail in the coffin. If Duncan can't be blamed for the actions he performed having undergone a dark quickening, then Darius can't be praised for the actions he performed having beheaded that holy man in front of the gates of Paris, because in both cases, they're just possessed by those that they beheaded. The reality is that Duncan is fundamentally good, and Darius is fundamentally evil.
What's the matter?
Sometimes being a Catholic priest is easier than other times.
Anything you want to talk about?
Would that I could, my friend, would that I could.
I get why some fans enjoy the Dark Quickening arc, and I enjoy most of it too. I mean, it's fun seeing Adrian and Paul act evil for one thing.
This is not who you are.
No, maybe it's who I should be. What you see is what you get.
But personally, I find the way the concept is presented, and especially the way it taints the character of Darius, to be very problematic to say the least. This is why I said that it's worse than the aliens of Highlander 2 and the Demon Ahriman combined. Because while those ideas had a negative impact on other aspects of Highlander, they didn't completely undermine and destroy our understanding of beloved characters and cast serious doubt on everyone else. In fact, whatever its other flaws are, the Ahriman arc deals with the problem of evil in a far more satisfying way than the Dark Quickening arc.
All I know is that evil exists in all of us, Joe. When we deny that, we give evil power.
Now you've got to ask yourself, why is the element of the Hyoka in there at all if dark quickenings can happen to any immortal? Well, I suspect that the writers did this to emphasise the rarity of dark quickenings. Having a character like Coltec, whose very function is to absorb evil, allows them to present a figure that would be particularly susceptible to dark quickenings. But that doesn't do anything to mitigate the problems I've highlighted. Of course, there is extended lore on the subject. Connor MacLeod had to wrestle with a dark quickening after defeating the Kurgan, and Caspian, one of the Four Horsemen, has apparently been under the influence of a dark quickening since the Bronze Age. But unfortunately, attempts to explain the obvious problems with how the TV show presents the Dark Quickening can't undo what the show outright says about it. I think this is why the show itself never once mentions the Dark Quickening again, not even when Stephen Keen hunts Duncan specifically for killing Sean Burns.
I've been practicing. Next time you pull a sword on me, it won't be so easy.
Richie, I'd like to take back what happened, but I can't.
Although I can't see how they'd do it, I'd dearly love for someone to explain to me how I'm wrong about this, so please share your thoughts on the issue. For now, thank you for watching, and remember, in the end, there can be only one.
Where are we?
A holy place. A place of peace and safety. My refuge.
But this isn't real, this is a dream.
This place is real. Perhaps we are a dream.